So my literary agent didn't work out. I wrote a memoir about how I was a frontline medic at a base in Afghanistan that received such constant fighting that they had to drop 4 2,000-pound bombs around our base one night to keep us from being overrun. And then I got home and decided to double down on PTSD and work on an ambulance as a frontline paramedic. And I did both of those things while having autism, which is apparently difficult to do, although if you've ever been in the military or on an ambulance, you know it is not uncommon at all. Because I've got that sort of tism that's real good at puzzles, and medicine is just puzzles that happen to be screaming. The memoir I wrote was specifically about living with PTSD. I painted the picture of how I got it. I did all of this stuff in Afghanistan and my childhood abuse and working on an ambulance and losing my partner to a drunk driver. But the agent said he didn't think he could sell that. He called the childhood abuse preamble and told me all the meat of the book, which I thought was the important stuff, ergo living with PTSD, wasn't gonna fly with editors because they'd be so excited by the combat stuff that they'd get bored after. So in a weird moment of growth, I turned down 10 times the amount of money to write about my experiences in Afghanistan that I got paid to get blown up there. I still have the book, I still have the rights, I could try to sell it if I wanted, but I hated that experience so much that I decided I don't want to write memoirs. This is the view I have while I was writing. It's shelves upon shelves of science fiction and fantasy, and a literal visual representation of the history of science fiction. And all I could think while I was writing the book was, I can't wait for this to sell and hopefully do well so I can convince my agent to let me write what I want to write. And that's stupid. Forcing myself to drill down into all of the horrible experiences of my life to entertain others so that I could write something I actually wanted to write is the most back-asswards way of doing something that I've ever done. So I sat down and started writing what I want to write. And we're 50,000 words into a sci-fi fantasy novel, and it's only been 2 weeks. I don't know what I'm going to do next. I don't even know if I want to try traditional publishing again, because that experience was unpleasant. But they're also not the only game in town, so maybe it'll be better with somebody else. Maybe trying to sell a nonsense fantasy novel about goofy shit is a little easier on the emotions than being told that your day-to-day life is not as interesting as that time in 2010 when you got blown up. Especially considering that, the whole theme of the book was that nobody cares about you after you've been blown up. What I did learn from this experience is that large sums of money will not take away the discomfort, and that when met with failure, I continue to write. Apparently, no matter what my level of success, I will always feel the need to write, which I guess makes me a writer. Hooray! I've also learned that no matter how unpleasant the situation, I will always be my best advocate. And between that and the fact that I've never given up on writing, it'll probably work out in the end. And if I can't find a way to make things work in my favor, despite my talent for writing and millions of followers, well, then I don't think this is the industry for me. I'd rather fail time and time again for the rest of my life than change who I am to taste success.